David, it's
Hi.
so great to have you here today.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share some insights with our little ClickBank client interview series.
Mm-hmm.
You've been such a great client of ours for years now and an exceptional entrepreneur.
Oh.
We're deeply grateful for you making the time to join us. You just recently moved out here to Boulder, correct?
Yes.
And what inspired
I was just done with LA. LA is, the cost of living there is pretty obscene, and it continues to get more and more intense, and I wanted a house and like a social life and be able to do more than one activity per day, because LA is like basically everything you do takes an hour minimum, so wanted to get out and come to a smaller place like Boulder, which has been awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And what has been your favorite part of Boulder so far?
Just the community, I think. Like, part of it is like I'm still having PTSD from LA traffic, and so like the idea of being able to go somewhere between 4 to 6 p.m. or 4 to 7 p.m. and it take 3 minutes, and not have any worries about that has been great. And the people are really nice. It's a super healthy place. I'm way more active here than I was in LA. It's just, and the food is great. I mean, it's just an awesome town. I mean, it's fantastic. I love Boulder.
I'm glad you love Colorado. So, you've been doing this digital marketing thing for how long now?
2010, I would say. Maybe late 2009 at the earliest.
5, 6 years?
Yeah.
Nope, 7.
7 or 8 years.
7 or 8 years?
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I'm not 16 years old. I'm almost 30.
How were you first introduced to this world?
Gosh, I read the 4-Hour Workweek, I think, in college, and I was interning at this gym called Perfect Competition, which was like a NFL combine gym for athletes, and I read the 4-Hour Workweek, and I was like, holy shit, I can outsource my entire internship to India, basically. And I did I tried it out. I did a task, and it worked amazingly well. And I was like, okay, well, this is something I should get into more.
Yep.
And I wasn't really thrilled with college at the time. I mean, I never really was thrilled with college, but I basically, after that, kind of just decided I was going to drop out. I dropped out my first semester senior year. I got introduced to Ryan Lee because I wanted to be a personal trainer, and he was like the internet marketing for personal trainers guy. And then he turned out to have an event in Stamford, Connecticut, which is where I was born and grew up and everything, and my parents lived there at the time. And so I went to that event and interned with him, and or went to the event. Basically, it was like, I want to intern for you in your Regis office. So it was like me and him sitting across from each other at the desk for like 6 hours a day, which I'm sure was super awkward for him. And then from there, just kind of, he introduced me to a client locally in New Canaan where he was, and just kind of things kind of picked up from there. But he was really kind of the catalyst for me of like, did the 4-Hour Workweek like opened my mind to the possibilities that I didn't even know about, and then Ryan kind of was like, okay, now here's what you do with this information, like here's like the strategy sort of deal.
He helped you apply it.
Big time, yeah. I mean, it was just like knowing how to think and act and approach this world, I think, was the big, like, he basically, I'll never forget, like, we had this one day where I asked him, like, what's the secret, and he said, essentially, there's 2 things. 1 is relationships, and 2 is traffic. If you know how to do either of those, you're going to be good to go. And that's what I focused on. And I think the biggest thing is, honestly, like, I wouldn't say Ryan spent a lot of time teaching me like tactical stuff. Like, I'm sure I learned a lot about like sales funnels and whatnot back then because he was doing that stuff. But the biggest stuff I learned from him was just how to approach this world properly. Like, Ryan's a guy who everybody likes, has a great personality, and I think a lot of people come into digital marketing and they have like this like desperation and like meet people and you feel like they want stuff from you, and he basically like showed me how to behave properly, and I think that was probably the most invaluable experience. It's just like knowing how to communicate and connect with people in a way that makes people feel comfortable and like make friends in the business space, basically.
Yeah.
And that was that was like the biggest thing for sure. It was like life-changing stuff.
Perfect. That's so awesome. So a lot of people with interest in becoming digital entrepreneurs face the question of whether they should pursue a passion or chase a trend. Was PaleoHacks a passion project or more of a business savvy opportunity?
kind of a combination. I mean, I basically in 2011 I got introduced to the paleo diet, and over the 2 years from that until I took over PaleoHacks, because I didn't start PaleoHacks, to be clear, it like changed my life. It was like I had all sorts of health issues, nothing like insanely serious, but just stuff that was like a problem. And eating paleo, just it like reversed my age. Basically, is how I felt. I felt like I was like a 90-year-old man, and then I was back to being a 22-year-old at the time. And PaleoHacks kind of fell into my lap. Honestly, I was working behind the scenes in the dating and the men's and women's fitness space, and basically it was like a friend of a friend, or business partner of a friend, like sort of deal, who had PaleoHacks and needed help turning it into a business because it was just a forum and AdSense earnings at the time. And I was like, cool, I love the paleo diet, I'm all about this, and I love online marketing, and this is a great marriage of the two. So I started working for the company then, and eventually kind of earned ownership and whatnot. But in terms of chasing a trend or going after your passion, I honestly, like, I feel like everyone wants to give like it's one or the other definitively, but I really feel like it depends on the personality type. Like, I think there are people who can chase a trend that they're not super personally interested in because they just really like business. Like, I'm one of those people that, like, I'm not as passionate about paleo as I once was. Like, paleo is kind of just a part of my life now. I don't read health books and nutrition books. I'm not like that interested in the topic. However, it is a topic that I still am like, first off, I'm proud to be in that space because I think it helps a lot of people, but paleo is not my obsession. What is my obsession is business and business operations and digital marketing and that sort of stuff. And paleo is kind of like so I get kind of the best of both worlds a little bit, but I wouldn't say that like I wake up every morning and like, oh, I can't wait to hear what the latest in the paleo world is. You know, I'm kind of over it at this point. So I think it depends on the person. I would probably lean on someone. Most people probably are more in the passion category than the trend or like just the other category, but yeah, I would probably suggest passion first because that'll give you kind of like the fire to get going, you know. And things get hard too, so if you like hate what you're doing and it gets hard, you might be more likely to bail. So I think if you do a passion, it allows you to kind of mitigate those sort of circumstances a bit.
Agreed. Perfect. So you mentioned reading. Do you make a lot of time for reading?
In my head, I make a lot of time for buying books. I don't make a huge amount of time for reading those books. My basement has lots of books, and I seem like a very educated person from that, probably, but like I probably read 30% of the books on the wall. But the ones I have read, if they're really good, I'll read them over and over again. So like there's a few kind of core books that I go back to, but like I don't know, I have this thing where I know I should skim books more and like do a little more of that sort of process, but it like makes me very uncomfortable to have it be incomplete, you know. Like I feel like I need to read the whole book, and so that often like puts me in this weird limbo state where I of course don't do anything. But yeah, I kind of go back to a few books that are like kind of guides for certain things that I do. But other than that, I buy a lot of books. I'll quickly skim through them, and if it doesn't like really grab me, it just sits on my shelf forever. I'm a little embarrassed by that fact.
So what's your criteria then when choosing a book that you want to read and not get to it?
Topical focus. It has to be relevant to what I'm doing right now. That's the big issue I have with books, because I read a lot on the internet, but most of the books that I read are not super applicable to what I'm looking for, or like my fanatical obsession for the last year has been business operations. And so there's a great book called Traction, and there's another great book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, who actually is on the PaleoHacks newsletter, which is like kind of a small world moment. But those books are written in a way in which I can, like, Traction I read in like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and was basically able to pull out from that like a 12-point list of the steps in the book. And Scaling Up is kind of the same sort of book, where it has like the first page of every chapter has like the cliff notes for that chapter, and you don't even have to basically read the entire book. You can just read that part, and if you need it from that, you know what I mean? So I'm more of like I'm looking for data transfer when I'm reading books as fast as possible. I don't like the E-Myth, for example, is one of my least favorite books of all time because I just don't care about Joanne and her cupcake store or whatever it is, or like the parable style. I like where it's just like, here's how we do things. Like, I don't want to hear your backstory. I don't want to hear any. I don't care about the author. You know what I mean? So my criteria is like, I want as much information in the most concise way possible. So that often eliminates like 99% of books, basically.
Most people like
stories. Like those 2 books I mentioned are like the only ones that I can like go through over and over again. But those are also, again, the topics that I'm most interested in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been a part of our community of entrepreneurs for some time now. Where has ClickBank driven the most value for PaleoHacks?
The biggest thing I would say is that we are a part of a group of people that we really know, like, and trust. I think ClickBank has, I don't know, basically, like, ClickBank was probably the easiest platform for us to work with from day one, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. And somehow the group of guys that are in our space on ClickBank are all really close friends now. And I think for me, it's like there's like the ClickBank crew or whatever, you know what I mean? And so that's really nice. It's a really good group of people that are a part of all this. And some people aren't on ClickBank anymore, but they're still part of the circle, you know. But I think that plus like the ultra ease of affiliate stuff, I mean, that's like probably the biggest thing, and not having to deal with like the typical merchant processor type stuff, taking that off our plate is really nice. Because I'd imagine if we didn't have a service like ClickBank, especially a few years ago when there was way less other options too, we would have probably like done something wrong at some point and like, you know, got like fined by the government or something for like not collecting state tax in the right, you know what I mean? Because there's so many freaking regulations and that sort of stuff, and I know that ignorance is no excuse for the law, but like it's still like we were just talking about this the other night. I was like talking to my parents about like how different state depending on where your business is, you have to collect different state taxes, and like I know it's a really small piece, but it's like ClickBank does it all for you, and I'm sure some other shopping carts do that now these days, but before probably not. And so yeah, it just has made that sort of stuff kind of like a set and forget sort of thing, which is really nice and alleviates a lot of potential stress and stuff. So the JV contract stuff is super useful, and yeah, I think really those are kind of the core things: is the community, the affiliate support, and like the JV stuff is really good.
Thank you. Let's leave our viewers with a final thought from you, David. In all of your lessons learned, books read, and conversations had, what principle stands out that inspires you when things get really challenging as an entrepreneur?
Challenging, God, what principle I just like, I have no interest in, this is my life. Like, I don't wake up in the morning and like go to a job that I don't have ownership over, that I'm not into. Like, I literally only care about this, probably. So I like eat, breathe, sleep this business. That's all I think about. And so when things get hard, which is, you know, it can happen, I guess, but I'm fortunate that things have been pretty good. But I just am never gonna stop. Like, I'm gonna be doing this for the next, like, for the rest of my life until they, like, shut down the internet or something, you know? Like, so, you know, I have a deep commitment to this, and I don't know how to, like, you know, if someone was like, how do I get that? I have no idea. But, like, this is my obsession, and I'm not gonna stop until I don't even I have some goals in my head of what I want, but like I probably wouldn't stop at that point. You know what I mean? Like, this is all I'm gonna do. This is what I want to do with my life, and this is all I'm doing. And so if things are like challenging, it doesn't really matter to me because I'm doing it anyway, you know. And I might as well do the hard stuff. You know, we're all living the same 24 hours, the same life. I might as well like do it, do it the way that I want to do it and build something that I want to build. So
you need that passion.
Yeah, I'm passionate about building something that I am proud of. Like I'm kind of, I firmly believe in my capabilities too, and so like I see I know what I can do, and I want to do that, and I would feel kind of disappointed in myself if I didn't achieve the potential that I believe that I have.
Exactly.
So that's kind of my main driver, I guess.
So many good insights. Thank you, David. I look forward to every chance I get to chat with you.
Thank you.
And I hope that everyone watching this has been able to glean some wisdom from what you've shared here today.